Let's take you here now. The most reliable and cheapest energy needs to be urgently brought onto the grid within the next 3 years. That's the view of Professor Mark Swilling. He's the co-director of the Stellenbosch Centre for Complex Systems in Transition. Professor Swilling says only certain infrastructure can be acquired it must be acquired fast in order to ensure the economy does not get crippled. He joins us now for more on this issue. Thank you very much for joining us. You also suggest that urgent steps need to be taken. What are those urgent steps?
The most urgent steps would be to lift the cap on self-generation, so everybody is allowed to install their own solar power, but up to a maximum of 1 gigawatt. But if that was lifted to 10 gigawatts, that would immediately remove pressure on the grid of about 5 gigawatts, according to the CSR. So that's an immediate step that can be taken. The other step that could be taken is that renewable energy power plants can produce more than they currently are licensed to produce, and that could put on the grid up to another 300 megawatts. And then there are between 7 and 10 gigawatts of shovel-ready renewable energy projects, which could come online within the next 2 or 3 years. The minister has announced that the new Section 34 determination is ready to roll, and that is to procure 6.8 gigawatts. So there's a lot that can be done, but we need probably 25 gigawatts before 2025. That's what I argue in the article.
Is this something that is unbeknown to us? It doesn't sound like it's something that is impossible to achieve. We'll get into case studies in terms of what other countries have done around the world, but is this something that we do not know already?
Well, it's a great question. It's known amongst a very small group of highly technical and financial people who think about these things, but I think in the broader public, there is a kind of knee-jerk reaction that correlates when they hear the word renewables. They think it's got something to do with climate change, and we should do this because we want to be green. For some people, renewables are about climate change, but for us, if we do not want permanent load shedding by 2025, we have to get a lot of new energy onto the grid. And you can't build coal or nuclear or gas that quickly. You can only build renewables. I don't think the broader public actually appreciates that.
You also mentioned here that solar and wind can already produce electricity 40% cheaper than coal, to your point of pricing. Talk us through what it is that we have seen in India in terms of a case study and how they got it right.
Well, basically, the Indian case, there is an Indian project that has managed to demonstrate that it is possible for solar power to generate power on a 24/7 basis. And why that is important is, as you can imagine, solar energy is based on the sun. And when there's no sun, there's no energy. However, if you correlate that with the appropriate amount of storage, battery storage, and battery prices have dropped 85% in the last 5 years, you are able to generate energy when the sun is shining, store some of it, and when the sun is not shining, bring that onto the grid from your batteries. And that's a very significant breakthrough, and it's affordable.
Sure. We've heard from the CEO of Eskom, Andre de Ruyter, about turning the tide and making sure that South Africa gets somewhere, because this also impacts us economically as a country. It has a big impact on us on top of having to deal with COVID-19. So what is it that we do? I mean, a lot of people have also called for the unbundling and privatization of Eskom. Is that a way to go?
I would not support unbundling and privatization under current conditions. Instead, what the CEO of Eskom has referred to is the divisionalization of Eskom. And that's a fancy technical word for breaking up Eskom into 3 separate entities under Eskom Holdings, so it's still publicly owned. And you'd have one entity that would generate electricity. You'd have another entity that would transmit entity at the transmission grid, and a third entity that would be responsible for distribution at the local level. together with the municipality. So it's really about breaking it up into separate entities that have very specific focuses so that you can actually better utilize the technical and human and institutional capacities that are there. At the moment, it's all vertically integrated and is not very efficient.
Professor Mark Swilling, that's all we have time for from the University of Stellenbosch. Thank you very much.